Hello, my name is Christian, and my topic is on sexual orientation. My main claim is individuals are rather converting to homosexuality through social influences rather than genetics. For a couple definitions, sexual preference is the choice of liking which gender by showing sexual interest, and sexual orientation is the direction of an individual's sexual interest through psychological influences rather than sociological influences. And coming out of the closet is a slang form of realizing one's homosexuality either to themselves or publicly. Now, my first supporting claim, genetics are unrelated to homosexuality. Two gay men cannot form a baby. Genetics are given from parents, and a male cannot physically deliver a baby. Therefore, the children's traits are unrelated to the traits passed by a gay couple, especially men. Individuals have a baby in a heterosexual relationship before they come out as being gay, which results to being individuals being influenced to being gay, and as stated, Michael Brown, who has a PhD, is a host of a radio show that is called The Line of Fire, stated in Charisma News. He states, "If there were reputable scientific evidence that some people were born homosexual, I would have no problem accepting this. After all, my theology tells me that as human beings, we are all created in God's image, yet we are a fallen race, and so all of us carry aspects of that fallen nature to the core of our being. But the fact is that there is simply no reputable scientific evidence that anyone is born gay." As my second supporting claim, coming out as to being gay are referred inconsistently and occurs not when an individual is born. Let's take pedophilia for an example. Pedophilia is considered a sexual disorder, while homosexuality is based off of their orientation. According to the Pedophilia Code, pedophilia is a disorder that is characterized by sexual urges to children, sometimes the same gender. Having the same sexual urges to the same gender is also defined as homosexuality. Yet pedophilia is not genetic related. Society looks down on pedophiles, yet encourages homosexuals, resulting in many individuals to come out of the closet rather than to come out of the closet, resulting in homosexuality not being a genetic trait. An individual can change their gender, however, individuals with the same mindset struggle with their sexual preference. Nat Nazareth is one of the Christian Post editors, and he believes, if choice reigns, why can't one change their sexuality? The inconsistency sounds even more strange when considering that liberals generally believe one can change one's gender by simply saying they are of a different gender. In other words, someone can change their gender by just declaring it. But if you are gay, you can never change. And my third supporting claim, there are many factors to influence your sexual orientation. Samuel Smith is a Christian Post reporter as well, who covers what John Hopkins researchers say about the topic of whether scientifically people are born homosexual or not. He states, "Studies of the brains of homosexuals and heterosexuals have found some differences, but have not demonstrated that these differences are inborn rather than the result of environmental factors that influence both psychological and neurobiological traits." The report reads, "One environmental factor that appears to be correlated with non-heterosexuality is childhood sexual abuse victimization, which may also contribute to the higher rates." Furthermore, liberals being more open to their opinions and conservatives being less open. To add on, conservative refers to homosexuality as being a sin, while liberals believe in freedom of choice. In other words, the environment of whether you live in a community that accepts homosexuality can affect an individual's decision to come out of the closet. The media covers more topics of homosexuality, such as passing gay marriage laws. Now, recent movies, news, social media interpret homosexuality being acceptable in society, thus many more individuals find themselves being homosexual. And lastly, gay marriage laws passed, therefore, many find being gay acceptable in society, which it is. Everybody should have their own choice, and it shouldn't be affected by society. However, society does affect choices. And in conclusion, genetics are really unrelated to homosexuality, and it also results to many people inconsistently saying that they are homosexual, and recent times or society now are having more influences to letting people think that they are homosexual. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Christian, the propositions identified, I think the phrasing on it is a little complicated. The contents are not really previewed before you get into the body of the speech. I think there's plenty of controversy on the subject, so I don't think that you have to do much to justify that position. Everything's well organized in the body of the speech, at least when it comes to structure, although the claims that you present are sometimes a little bit confusing, especially the explanation of those claims. On the first point, when you said genetics is unrelated to sexuality, I understood the claim that you're making there. What I didn't understand is your evidence that you're using to support that. Two men cannot make a baby, so how does that identify what the source of their sexuality is? That was not very clear. I kind of got the inference that suggested that people choose to become homosexual after they've had families, and therefore it is a choice rather than an innate behavior. I kind of thought that that might be what you were suggesting, but if that's not what you were suggesting, then I have no idea what the point was that you were making on that first point. The evidence that you cite here, however, was a little bit more effective in excuse me, improving that particular point. You have the quote that says there's no reliable or reputable evidence that shows this relationship, and that the small differences that have been found are not really significant enough to reach that conclusion from. So I thought that that was reasonable information on that particular point. Your second point, makes an analogy to pedophilia and suggests that if pedophilia is not genetic, which people deny that it is, they say it's a sexual sort of thing, and pedophilia has some of the same characteristics and even some of the same definitions as homosexuality, then why is it that pedophilia is caused by other issues and homosexuality is not caused by other issues? I kind of understand the argument that you're making there, but I do think that you need a little bit more proof on that, and I'm not exactly sure that equating homosexuality with pedophilia is appropriate given the way that both of those are treated by psychologists, where they see them as being different kinds of behaviors. One would be perceived as a disorder, and the other is apparently not a disorder, according to the opposite side from what you're arguing. And then the third point, that there are many factors that contribute to this, I think that that's probably where there's a good argument to be made, but there's not as much evidence in it as you need. You did have, one reference there to some information, but mostly it comes down to, well, we've got liberals and conservatives, and we've got public attitudes that are changing, and if society finds it acceptable, then that's what's going to happen. And then you also draw a similar analogy to choosing your gender. If it's okay for people to choose their gender now, why is it not okay for them to choose their sexual orientation? I can kind of see the way that you're using that analogy, but it needs to be stated a lot more clearly. I think you've got some kind of tortured reasoning that you're presenting here, and you need a simpler way to explain that reasoning to support your points. And I think some additional evidence would help also. All right, thank you.